Hello guys, welcome to the last episode of the series. We'll be looking at the dashboard page in this episode, and as usual, we'll be starting with the Webflow part, the Webflow build, and how it's been set up. And let's dive into it. Inside of Webflow, we in the dashboard page, we have a top bar that has only the title, and in the middle, there is a div block on the left that is housing the charts. This chart. We have a select we're using for the filtering. In the select, there are various fields. The first one is last 6 months, and the value is 6. So setting the value to 6 for the first one means it will be 6 by default on page load. The select will always be the last 6 months. It will always be set to this option. Then second option is last 3 months, and we have the last 2 months. Last 3 months has value of 3, and this one has value of 2. So what I'm trying to do is 6 inside of Xano. We will convert it to 6 months, and this one will be 3 months, this one will be 2 months, this will be 1, this will be 12, and this all will be empty. The select has been given a Wized attribute of income start filter. We will be using that inside of Wized. We have a text which will be using to display the total amount from whatever has been selected. So it's given with attribute of dash total amount, and we have a code embed we are using for the charts. So the charts, as I've talked about in one of the episodes, we are making use of Apex charts. So you can find it at apexcharts.com. So it's a very robust chart library. We are installing it directly using the script. So we put in the script. We'll be putting it at the below the closing body tag of our page. Yeah, let's look at the code. So we will be initializing the charts. There's a function to initialize the charts. The type of chart we are using is called area charts. There are a lot of type of charts inside of our Apex charts. So we're using area charts because I think it's more beautiful. So area charts, you can like have a series of data so that you can compare. As you can see here, they have 2 series. We only need one in our case. So as you can see, charts, where is it? So yeah, series, there's only one object inside the array for the series. Okay, and these are for the configuration, the color, the animation, and all. Then we have the label. Yeah, the label is this. Everything on the horizontal axis, the x-axis. So going back to the series, we'll be passing a data from a Wized variable. So we are able to have access to Wized variable inside of Webflow using the Wized JavaScript API. And also the label. The label, this one on the x-axis, we will be passing it from the Wized variable. The variable is called charts data. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. And then going down, this code, what it's doing is listening for this request. So when this request finishes, it will reinitialize the chart function. Moving forward, on the right we have a block to display the number of outstanding client invoices, and another one to display the number of unpaid employee invoices, another one to display the total number of employees. Down below we have a, just as it is in the client invoice page, we have a block to list the most relevant client invoices. So it's just a copy from that page. Yeah, let's talk about this. So we have a text to show the name of the login user, and we have a button for logout. Okay, so now let's look at Xano, and let's see what we have. The first thing we'll be looking at inside of Xano is this client invoice getting the start. Yeah, so this is what is returning this data for the chart. So inside the function stack, we are passing an input, an integer called month, and in the function stack, the first we have a conditional, and then the condition is if the input is not empty. So if it is not empty, then do this query or record from the client invoices if the status is paid and Yeah, so this where we'll be using the our filter, this one. So remember the value inside of Webflow for 6 months is 6, for 3 months is 3. So we want to say that the first thing we want to do is we will subtract that input. Let's say 6 months. We'll subtract 6 months from the current time. Today is January 1. So 6 months ago is it July? I think July, yeah. So after subtracting, we'll be using this filter in Xano called timestamp subtract month. Then the months we want to subtract will be the our input. Okay, then we will say whatever the result is, if the completed at, which means the time of payment of the invoice, is greater than that final subtraction. Yeah, so that's the logic. So yes, and if the month input is then empty, then query or record from the client invoice. So if it's empty, that means we that means the user have selected all. So it will just query all the client invoice record without applying any filter, and to just make sure the status is paid. The second endpoint we will look at is the one we will be using to get this, and this. So we'll be getting all the outstanding client invoice, the invoice we sent to client that has not been paid. So the condition is query or record from the client invoices if the status is awaiting, and that's very straightforward. So we want to query or record all the client invoice record that the status is awaiting, which means it has not been paid and it has not been cancelled, and we want to return it as a count. Return as counts, because we're only interested in the number, we're not interested in the name or the amount or anything. And the second is unpaid employee invoice. I think there's a typo here. Yeah, unpaid employee invoice. So that also is very similar to client invoice. We want to query a record from the employee invoice in which the status of those invoices are pending, and we want to return this also as count. And the last, we want to get all our employee, so that also is similar. So we will be querying our record from user that is not an executive, and the user, basically all the user are working for the agency, but we don't want to count the executive as an employee. Then the second condition is also the user should not have been deleted. Okay, yeah, let's look at this. So this is used to get the details of the logged in user, and of course it is to always be authenticated. Yeah, what else? I think that's all. Yeah, now let's go to Wized. Inside of Wized, the first thing we want to do is, let me reload the page. Yeah, the first thing we want to do is set up the request. The first request is to get the one that we want to set up is the one to get the data for the charts. Okay, so we have created a folder for those requests that are relevant to this page. The first one is called get payments, which its data will be used for the chart. So we'll be setting that up. The method is get, and the endpoint is this one. So the endpoint, we will copy it now. Okay, return it here, URL endpoint. Then the parameter, we have a single input month. Okay, so for that we will be passing this select. Remember, we've given the select a Wized attribute of income start filter. Okay, so we'll be returning income start filter. Then this is, we are making sure we are converting that to an integer, because we are performing some operation with that input. So we want to make sure it's being converted, because the input, I think by default, is string. And then want to pass in the authorization, pass in the auth token. Okay, so the second request we will look at now is we want to get these ones, the outstanding client, employee, and the total employee. So I think it is dashboard start. We'll copy the endpoints, the URL endpoints, and the get request. We'll paste the endpoint here. We set the method. It does not have any input that we are passing. Okay, then how do we trigger this request? So we have events on page load events, which says when the page starts loading, and the condition is if it is this page, the dashboard page, perform request to get the payment, which is the one to get the data for this. Also get the client invoices, the same request that we're using to get the client invoice in the invoice page. So we're using the same request here, just that we are only listing for invoices here, and there's no pagination. Then get the dashboard stats, which are this one, the request that we return this one, and also set the loader variable to true. Remember, when the loader variable is being set to true, the loader will disappear, and the condition for that is if the get payment is okay. Yeah, so remember, inside of Webflow, we when we are setting up the charts for the data, which is this one on the left, we are passing it from a variable inside of this, and it is this variable. So this variable contains two array and this one total amount. So let me copy it and show you. So this is the variable. We have an array there called month, another array called amount, and we have a field called total amount. So let me show you the original request data. So when we get the stats, this is how the requests look like. This is how the data look like. That's the ID, amount, the time of creation, the time of payments. But it is this data that we're using to render this. We are turning this data into the amount and the label. So how do we do that? We are using a small piece of JavaScript to restructure the data so that it will give us the desired structure to render the chart. So we need this for the amount, an array for the amount, then an array for the label. So we have another event that says after every get payment request finishes, we want to run this function. So the function is the function that will format this data. It will extract the amount, extract them, and it will put it in an array, and also it will extract the completed at the time of completion. It will also put that in another array, and it will format it for us. So that's what the code is doing. It has been included in the Notion page. Okay. So as you can see, after doing everything, it will save the results in this variable called chart data. So this is the variable chart data. It is not that variable we are passing into our Apex charts initialization code. Okay. Then we have this select. There is an event on the select, and the event is when the select changes, perform the request to get data. Like every time we change the select, we want to use the new value to get new data. I think that's kind of straightforward. Okay. So one thing the code is doing again is that if the as you can see now, is this from October to December, that's like 3 months. So if the difference between the lowest timestamp and the highest timestamp is not more than 3 months, it will just format it into days, like days of each payment. But if it's more than 3 months, it will format it into months, just months, not days again, because days will be longer. So the code is smart enough to do that for us. Okay. Yeah, everything and how the chart initialization is being set up can be found here. This is the documentation page for Apex chart. Yeah, moving forward, we are getting this from our backend using this API. We've covered that. So we are returning all the 3 variable: the client invoice, employee, and total employee. So now let's look Okay, one more thing before I proceed. We have the last thing from this variable, the chart data, is the total amount. So after we've restructured the data into two different array, the months and the amount, we also return in the total amount. So it will calculate all the amounts here and to give us the sum. So we are rendering that here. So we're rendering using plain text. We have a function to format that number into a figure like a format that will look like we are talking about money. So as you can see, here is just number, no formatting, no commas. Yeah, we have a well formatted number. Okay, so yeah, let's move forward. This one, they are just being returned directly from a request. The request, look for it, get dashboard stats. Yeah, this one, get dashboard stats. So the outstanding client invoice, we will map it to this one. So we will set a text, plain text, and we will return this. Okay, the employee invoice, we will map it to this one, and the total employee will map it to this one. So all are plain text. Then in the bottom, I have the outgoing client invoice. Is exactly just like in the invoice page, so I'm not going to cover that. So the only thing here is we are not rendering the pagination. So remember, the current page is 1 by default, so it will always return the first page for us. Okay, now let's look at the auth me, the request to get the details of the login user. So we'll be making the request to this endpoint called auth me. The only thing we'll be passing it is the auth token. So after we've returned the URL endpoint, we'll be passing the auth token. So that will return this, the details of the login user. Okay, then we'll be using that detail, the name, we'll be showing the name here. I've given this text a Wized attribute of login user, so we'll be setting the text from the name, return from the request get user. Then we have some events, some global events. The first one is on page load. We want to get the detail of the user. So when page starts loading, and this means if the page is under the app, like it's an app page, which means if the page starts with app, we want to perform request to get user. Okay, and the second event is for getting the authenticated pages that need authorization. So the condition is when the page starts loading and the page is an app page that starts with app, go to login page if there's no auth token, like if the auth token is falsy. Yeah, and that's a wrap. That's everything about InfoMate. Thank you so much for the patience so far. I hope you've learned one or two from the series. Hoping to do this once again in the future. Thank you so much. Bye.